In 1995, a deadly sarin gas attack took place in Tokyo subway that resulted in the death of 13 people and injured some 5,500 and more. The whole world was baffled. Sarin gas, a lethal nerve agent originally developed by the Nazis some decades ago, was used to attack civilians in Japan. What kind of a twisted act of terrorism could this be? The truth was a lot more horrific than what most people imagined. A man named Matsumoto Chizuo was born in the 50s in Kumamoto Prefecture in Japan. Matsumoto was born with infantile glaucoma, leaving him partially blind. He was enrolled in a school for blind children, where he repeatedly bullied his classmates. After graduating from school, Matsumoto decided to study acupuncture and pharmacology, as was common among blind people. The following year, he married and eventually fathered 12 children. After finishing his studies, he opened his own pharmacy in the city of Chiba, specializing in Chinese medicaments. For a while, his business was booming and his practice had become somewhat popular. However, in 1981, he was convicted of practicing pharmacy without a license and selling fake remedies. He was fined a large sum of money and subsequently went bankrupt. Matsumoto, who was now bankrupt, had to support his large family one way or another, which drove him to a spiritual crisis. Around this time, he also became interested in religion and meditation, yoga, Chinese astrology, and esotericism. Soon after, Matsumoto changed his name to Shoko Asahara and formed a religious group named Shinrikyo. After appealing to the Tokyo metropolitan government, Shinrikyo was recognized a legal religious corporation which granted tremendous power to Asahara. In surface, Shinrikyo is just like any other religious corporate, holding healing sessions and promoting spiritual awareness. In truth, Asahara had created a highly complex brainwashing facility that mixed Buddhism and Hinduism with doomsday prophecies and occultism. Asahara was an extremely charismatic man who claimed to possess extraordinary abilities. Many of his followers were troubled Japanese youth who had been outcast from society in one way or another, and it was very easy for a man like Asahara to brainwash these youngsters. He demanded that the new inductees hand over all of their savings, no matter how big or small, to the founder. He also charged membership fees to participate in strange rituals such as drinking his blood for healing. He began to appear on TV shows and magazine covers. His influence spread beyond Japan, and he managed to gather over 50,000 followers all over the world. However, Asahara was getting greedy and was blinded by delusions of grandeur and wanted a much higher level of power. He introduced 25 candidates for the Japanese parliament, believing that their election would result in him becoming the Prime Minister of Japan. As expected, his candidates were quickly rejected by the electorate, and Asahara took this very personally. In 1992, Asahara published his doctrine named Declaring Myself the Christ, in which he openly announced that he was the Neo-Christ of the New World who would lead his followers into salvation in the soon approaching Doomsday. He saw dark conspiracies everywhere, supposedly orchestrated by the Jews, Freemasons, and rival Japanese religions. He believed that the Third World War was approaching, and the only way to save people was, ironically, to bring forth Armageddon for human relief. Shinrikyo had set up a secret compound at the base of Mount Fuji where the members experimented with chemical weapons and other dangerous substances, such as sarin gas. They also had plans to purchase nuclear weapons from Russia. Asahara had come up with an ultimate plan to relieve the ignorant Japanese people from their sins, and his followers were the ones who were going to carry it out for him. On March 20, 1995, members of Shinrikyo attacked the Tokyo subway with sarin gas. This incident had over 5,500 casualties. The authorities found sufficient evidence to link this attack to Shinrikyo, as they'd tried similar smaller-scale operations in the past as well. Dozens of disciples were arrested and their facilities were raided, but it wasn't until a few months later that Asahara would be found hiding in a very small room in one of their facilities. Asahara's trial, which was called Trial of the Century by the Japanese media, took a few years to reach a verdict, and he and a couple of his followers were sentenced to death in 2004. Meanwhile, He resigned from his position in Shinrikyo to prevent the group from being forcefully dissolved by authorities. After all his appeals had been exhausted, Asahara was finally executed in 2018. To this day, Shinrikyo remains active. The religious corporate has disassociated itself from Asahara and has been renamed as Aleph. Although they have paid compensation to the victims of their earlier attacks, they are still regarded with suspicion. Their offices are kept under constant surveillance.